everybody. This is Caitlyn. Caitlyn's been with me for quite a while. I'll let you actually start. When we began 2017, was that the year?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm Caitlyn. Yeah, I've been with Johnny since 2017. He picked me up from my previous bodybuilding coach, thankfully, in 2017, after a very failed NBC Pittsburgh competition. So he picked me up right after, probably like 2 weeks, was when we started the reverse dieting, but I had already went on my binge. Loaded as hell could be, didn't know a thing about reverse dieting, and then it's been a wrap ever since 2017 with this guy.
Right. So when you started, I know we started with the intent of competing, right? That was the initial goal. You wanted to still, at that point in time, you were still ready to move into a, improvement season, do another contest. And then, goals had shifted. So for the purposes of, what we're really talking about here, I don't think it's important to I don't think it's super important to go through like competition goals and all that, because I think we're kind of wanting to explain like where you are now. So, at that point when we had started, and even after the goal had changed from competing to more of a lifestyle, I think there was a like a lot of people in that type of situation who want to still have goals. They want to look good, they want to feel good, they want to be athletic, they want to obviously have a great look, but and that's why they're afraid to stop competing or living a very restrictive lifestyle if that's what they were used to, if that's what they learned for competing. And then individuals like in your case, we had I'm not going to say you had an eating disorder, but you had disordered eating patterns.
Absolutely.
Definitely were had food phobia.
Yes.
Afraid to not take days off.
Yes.
Or actually, I might have said that incorrectly, but afraid to take days off when you take them off. And I think we've been working through that, and I think it's a really cool story because where you're at now, for a lot of people, I think is very inspiring. I think it's awesome, and I tell you every time you check in how happy I am and how proud I am of you, because you look phenomenal. And every time I see more positivity coming out of you, every time I guess I would say even from the beginning, I've been blurting nonstop. And sometimes even when I have people for short periods of time, I feel like a lot of the things I say, if somebody's not ready to hear it, it kind of goes in one ear and out the other. So I'm always yeah, so you really got to focus on prioritizing sleep. You really got to focus on stress management. You really got to focus on it. And they're like, yeah, sure. They're like, okay, guy. Yep. And it's it's frustrating because I know at the moment that it happens, there's all these positive things that are going to take place, and you have to be ready to do it.
Yeah, you have to be accepting of it.
So let's start somewhere in the middle with how you became starting to get more comfortable and started how each of those things started to click for you and how you're more comfortable with doing it.
Yeah. So I think that just real quickly on the bodybuilding thing, I know that back after my previous show that my focus was I always just wanted to be lean. I was in it for the wrong reasons, and I finally admitted that I wasn't enjoying it. I just wanted to look good. So then I knew that was unhealthy, and that's when I made the switch. And this guy has seen every check-in, every photo that no one else in the entire world has ever seen, and heard it directly from my own thoughts, my own minds, how badly I was beating myself up each time. So I would say when I'm going through the timeline of events, I think that everything started to come more into play. Well, I moved to Miami in 2019, and I remember we're all focused on that Miami Beach bod, and I had it down packed for a while, but I have it, as many have that difficulty with. You reach a goal and you're like, damn, I nailed it. And then you kind of go off. You're up and you're down. I went back into that very, very negative, just like after competing, binging and severe restricting. I'm talking severe binging and severe restricting. And I get out of it, would have I'd have an awesome check-in with you. I'd fall off the map for like a month and come back later and be like, hey, sorry, coach, I'm back. But what I look like now. So what can we do about it? So 2019, like we were kind of there, but not quite. And then I went away on a travel nurse contract in Arizona in 2021. And that was the year that I was turning 30. So we started getting more strict. And I remember getting super strict about it out in Arizona with my check-ins, getting back into my routine. That would have been in January. Hit my 30th birthday, looked awesome. Same thing happened. I hit my goal. I was happy with what I looked, but then we were back to that binge and restrict cycle. So I feel like I can't really pinpoint a time as to when it clicked for me. But I would say,
I would have to say definitely over the past year.
Yeah.
I would say the past like 15 to 16 months, I've seen drastic improvements across the board with your. So when I say your program adherence, I'm not referring to ultra restrictive. I'm referring to what we laid out as something that's going to work for you and able to follow that consistently long term, because it's something that is sustainable. And the goal was getting you to be comfortable, at least on my side, was like, all right, I'm going to start it where I know she's not going to be afraid of the program, meaning like, holy crap, this is too much food, and be afraid of it. And my goal was like, I'm going to slowly walk it up. So proving to her that she can take this in and nothing bad's going to happen. If anything, she's going to look better and she's going to perform better. She's going to feel better. And I think that we started to walk that up, and you were just like, yeah, I look great. And I'm not starving, so I don't need to binge. And then it was like another week would go by. I'm like, okay, cool. And then like 3 weeks, I'm like, all right, so we're going to bump up your intake again. And then I'd bump your carbs up again. And you're like,
okay, sure.
So I actually feel better and look better. I'm like, oh, I would have guessed.
So I guess I'm talking about Caitlyn. Yeah, I also stopped with like the steady state cardio. I used to be crazy about that. Now my basic form is just boxing. Honestly, I don't know the last time I stepped on a treadmill or stair stepper, and it's been great.
Yes.
So a lot of it is finding a routine that is realistic for you. If you're not going to be able to fit it into your schedule, if you don't enjoy it, there's no reason to be doing it unless you're competing, like
right, exactly.
Lifestyle. This is for fun. This is just to make me feel good about myself. I'm not stepping on anyone's stage but my own in life. So there's no reason to do things I don't enjoy anymore. So that's what I would like to emphasize is sometimes it's easier said than done. And yes, my routine is still crazy to most people. As a nurse, I'm still doing workouts at 4 a.m. in my parking garage. That's not for everyone. And I understand that. And I'm not throwing that on someone, but what I'm saying is what works for you, and you enjoy it, that's where you're going to get the results. So you need to focus on that and really hone in on things that you enjoy.
Yeah. And I'd say like from like a coaching perspective, and I know, you're one of the people that have done some mentorship and stuff with me. And one of the things that I'm very big on is the program, the design of the program you set for somebody is going to be, it has to match what they can adhere to. Like you're saying, like it has to match their lifestyle, has to match what they're going to follow, because the best setup in the world would mean absolutely nothing if you can't follow it. So
won't execute.
Having it set up in a way that works for that person, it is how it's going to work for them. It's how they're going to produce results. It's how they're going to be able to be consistent. So, when you set that up, and sometimes it's getting somebody comfortable with something that they're not comfortable with at first, especially like, for example, saying, hey, Caitlyn, like, hey, we need to, prioritize rest a little bit more. You don't need to be training that much. And we need to bump the food up. So like at first, when you tell somebody that's used to doing that, it's like, wait, what? And they think, especially who, where everybody wants to look good. So you're afraid that, what's going to happen here? And there are plenty of cases where people do put themselves in a really bad spot, and they actually have to go through a period where they don't look the best, right? Because they put themselves too far gone. Like they have to fix things before they can worry at all about their body composition.
Yeah.
So prior to you ever getting there, like when I started seeing like dysfunction start forming, I was like, we need to create these better habits and these better, like, you know, a better foundation. So you have these better habits to go about. And, you know, once we did that and I started seeing going from the 4-hour sleeps, and I'm like, and then I was like,
I only stopped those, you know,
and then I started watching sleep go up, and then I watched your perspective become more positive across the board with that. And I was like, oh, you know, I haven't been saying this for 4 years, but okay. So, you know, we'd see that going in, and then
hard-headed.
You know, doing things to better manage stress and seeing all these things that you were improving on. Like, again, it was a process, but seeing where it's at, and then like watching that all kind of click. And then as that clicked, your body composition started to not only look just as good, it started improving because your body wasn't as stressed. Your body was in a healthy state. So now we have basically like the best of both worlds, because you've got a lot of positives coming from, you know, function end, like you're functioning optimally, which ultimately is going to lead to the best results. But not only that, you're one of the, you know, unique cases in people that have those type of maybe not the best patterns previously, that actually was like simultaneously working a good foundation and habits in, while simultaneously the body composition was just getting better. So it was like a win-win. And then it's like, you know, very, very exciting now, you know, when you check in and like everything's a plus, you look great. And instead of like beating yourself down in the check-ins where you're like negative about some portion of how you look, it's like, hey, this week, you know, I had some friends from out of town here, you know, I was off track for like 2 days, and I know you're on track all the time. So like what you deem as being off is probably not that bad for most people, but you're on track 99% of the time. So 2 days out of all the time being spot on is not going to have a negative impact. But I remember back in the day, you would be very nervous about those days, and then would like starve yourself for 4 days and then binge for 3 days after doing that. And now it's like, hey, I had friends here for like the weekend, or, you know, a long weekend. And, you know, we weren't 100%. I got right back on after sending things, and your look is consistent because you're consistent. And now you know that you don't have to punish yourself or do these crazy things where
no punishment
yourself for a week and then binge ends up being worse than if you just
you're in this terrible vicious cycle that you literally are just pedaling, you can't get out of. And so I know that when you're signing up clients, one of the first questions you ask is, how committed are you to change? Everyone's going to be like, oh yeah, super committed. Let's get it, man. But like, are you? Because one of the first things, you know, when I'm doing all these changes, or you're making all these changes, whether it's to their eating habits, making them realize the importance of food, their training habits, making them maybe pull back on the cardio and increase their resistance training. They're like, oh no, I can't do that. That won't work for me. I'm like, okay, well, if what you're doing now, is that working for you? You know, like you have, like, obviously it's not, like, or else you wouldn't be asking for help. So you have to be open-minded, and you have to step out of your comfort box, and you have to go for it. You just have to, you know, let that fear go and realize you're going down a better path if you'll be open-minded to it and not so hard-headed like I was for so long.
It's like being, I mean, definitely, obviously you have to be coachable, right? So,
yeah,
you know, that's one thing. And again, everybody might have like portions of the program that are okay for them at that time, right? So it might take time for somebody to fully adhere to all the aspects, right? So like for a long time, you were good at parts of it, but then other parts, again, you weren't ready for.
Yes.
Over time, as you kind of started to see that everything was working well, the more you were on, the more it was like, oh, well, this makes a lot of sense. And a lot of times, like when we have things like that, you know, I can even tell you, like when I've had, you know, different scenarios, but same idea, I'm like, I wish I would have just done this a while ago, but you have to be ready for things like it. Not
Yeah.
every
You have to be accepting.
you have something, and then you obviously have the people who undoubtedly are just not coachable.
Yeah.
They say they want help, but as as you pointed out, they have to be ready for some type of change. Now, what some people are looking for is not a coach. They're looking for an echo chamber. They're looking for somebody to tell them what they're doing is okay. And then basically they want you to write the diet the way that they think it should be written, or their programming as a whole, whether it's their nutrition, whether it's their training, whatever they think is, and then it's like, well, I'm not coaching you. You're coaching yourself. You're just wanting me to tell you it's okay.
You want some type of validation that I'm not going to give you.
Right. And it's like, sometimes, you have people that, they're on the fence of being coachable, not coachable, and you can push them to being coachable in some cases where you're like, you kind of like, you give and take with them. Like you see where they're comfortable and you see where they're really not yet. So you change certain things where you're getting them more comfortable with, and then other things you kind of let slide, even though that they're not optimal, but you let them go because that is going to throw them over the edge, and they're going to do nothing that you need them to do. So then
just spiral.
slowly work it in. And then if they are coachable, obviously at that point, now it's like, maybe 6 months to a year down the line. And now you have everything, clicking the way that it needs to be. And obviously depending on different goals, like this is, if somebody starts with, the goal, for example, if you start with the goal of competing, well, when you're in a contest prep, it is restrictive. There's no way to go around that. So if you're a competitor, you basically have to say, okay, during that period of time, I do have to be restrictive. I do have to do what I have to do in order to, get to that goal. But it's more so like, I think a lot of competitors, if they were to learn healthy habits before that, would be more successful, because their fallback would be to go back on their healthy, foundation and good routines and good habits. Whereas somebody who's more of an extremist and they go, all in for their prep, and then they don't know how to reverse, even if you explain it to them, and then they just go off the rails. They lose their look, and now they have to go to extremes to go back and forth. Whereas like that person they have a much harder time. One, if they're trying to make progress as a competitor during the improvement season, because they wreck things, and then there's, dysfunction that happens. And then you have other, outside of that, you just have a lot of, there's just like a bunch of patterns that they're doing that are setting them in the wrong direction. So if they have things set properly first, and they have in their mind, like, this is a small amount of time in most cases, or I shouldn't say a short, but like it's A to B, like, where the contest is, that from that point to that point, you're going to have to do this, but you don't look at that as indefinite. You're not doing that long-term. So you're not looking at that restrictive lifestyle as you have to do that forever. You should look at it like, this gets me from A to B. Once I'm there, I reverse. Once I reverse, I can maintain moving forward. If I decide to compete again, great. If I don't, if I want to move like you in a different direction, you can still look great. And then because you reversed and now you've got great habits, now you look good and feel good all the time without being super restrictive, because you've built, great habits, and there's no, real highs and lows. You've built that, and now you just kind of remain steady and consistent, and going off a little bit here and there doesn't throw you off.
Yes, I would agree. And I think that going into bodybuilding, I did not have a positive body image of myself to begin with. So I was already setting myself up for failure, being in such a restrictive state for so long. That's all I wanted all the time, because I had already achieved this body of perfection. And I felt this pressure, which no one was giving me, that I had to remain this perfect, character of athleticism and conditioning and all together fitness, which I was not at all. Like that were probably some of my darkest years, was getting out of that hole of realizing you can't look like this all the time. Okay. So I think that before entering, yes, someone absolutely already has to have a positive body image of themselves. And then being able to have someone like yourself that holds that accountability to them when they feel themselves, falling loose or, spiraling out of control or whatever. And whatever method works best for them. I also wanted to point out that ever since I started working with Johnny, I've not weighed myself once. He never pressured me into weighing myself, where my previous bodybuilding coach like hammered that into my head, to actually a point where I had a panic attack at a doctor's office because they made me step on a scale and I didn't like the number and I was X amount of weeks out. And so from day one, I was like, listen, I'm not weighing myself. Haven't done it in years. No clue what I weigh. I'm sure you do, but because you can guess, I don't. But whatever works for you. Maybe weighing works for you. For me, I like to see the pictures. I'm pretty try to be consistent with my pictures and checking in with you. So you need to find that type of accountability and realize that maybe weight isn't always your most preferred option to hold yourself.
Yeah, and that's really where it comes, individual. And that's where, as a coach, as you're coaching people, you start to realize that as well. Like, you have different people with different needs. So is weight a great metric to use for a lot of people? Yes. If somebody is going to be, obsessive with their, and then basically it stresses them out so much, like it did with, with you prior to me, because we didn't ever do weight, but it stresses some people out so bad that stress factor actually stops them from progressing, because they're so stressed about seeing their weight.
Yep.
So, you got to know who is one of those people. And then sometimes even for those people, it's actually really hard to get them not to weigh, because
True.
they're 3 time a day weighers. I have people even still that I'm like, please stop. Like, and I'll say, like, actually, you know what, we're going to stop doing weight now, because they'll be like, at night I was 4 pounds heavier than I was fasted this morning. I'm like, well, you've been eating all day. Like, what did you think was going to happen? They're like, so you don't think I gained that much weight today? I'm like, no. Like, I don't think that's a real thing. And, but you feel for them. Like I said, like I've told you before, like I've had, a lot of anxiety and, like panic attacks, different scenarios. But so when somebody's dealing with that, I can relate to them, just what they're having a panic attack about. I feel bad, because I'm like, I wish that this wasn't, the cause of this, because it doesn't need to be.
Like, we can laugh about it, but we both realize that it's a really shitty mind state to be in.
Yeah, no, it's horrible. So that's what, like, when it comes to coaching, like I said, when you came to me for the mentorship as well, for, you becoming a coach, some of the things that I've kind of gone over was like, treat everybody as an individual. So, we're going to look at everything as a, you're not going to give them a protocol or a specific program.
No cookie
cutter crap. You're going to look at what they need, and you're going to create their programming around that so that they can adhere to it. And ultimately, if they can adhere to it and they can be consistent with it, that's going to produce results. Rather than, you might have you might know exactly how to get them to where they need to be. And you might have a perfect program in your mind, like, this is going to do this. But people are not, like applications. You can't just throw something in and be like, hey, this machine, we're going to run the process and it's going to work. That's not a real thing. I mean, sure, are there robotic people? Yes. Some of them, and they do a great job. A lot of them, so some really good competitors are like that. But the problem with them is, even so, like, even the ones that do reverse properly and then have a perfect improvement season, it's very hard for them to understand, like, balance, or they need a specific program all the time. I could be like, hey, like, this is a competitor, right? I'm talking about. So in the improvement season, I'm like, hey, you have 2 free meals per week. They're like, well, what you have for them? And I'm like, well,
free.
They're like, so like what do you think the calories should add up to if you're not going to tell me the macros? I'm like,
yeah, it's not free.
You shouldn't. Like, I just want you to go have something and enjoy yourself without thinking about it. Like, as long as you're not binging, and so I basically try to explain like this: like, if you're stuffing yourself and you feel sick after, probably too much.
Been there.
Like, if you just have something, enjoy it, and then return to your programming, great. But perfect. Even in scenarios like that, where like they don't like that. They want direction across the board. So, you know, if it works for them and it doesn't stress them out at all, awesome, right? I have no problem with it. But like, it's more so the people that don't want to live that way.
Yeah.
It's because they're afraid. Like some people literally are just robotic. They like direction. They don't want to have to think, and they just do it. And that's fine. That actually keeps them in a better state of mind. And if that works for them, awesome. But if like you're only doing it because you're afraid of some type of outcome,
Negative state.
that's where it needs work. So like that's something when you're coaching somebody, you want to find out their why.
Yeah.
Find out why they have maybe certain phobias or why they have certain, you know, issues that come about, and then how you can help them work around them. And ultimately, if you do that, that's going to make you a better coach. And, you know, just from like the basics, and then, you know, kind of go from there. So I think, you know, with your scenario, and I think with you, you know, wanting to work with like lifestyle general pop people, I think you're somebody who's going to do very, very well because you can relate. You can relate because a lot of times, even if they weren't competitors, a lot of women especially have been in perpetual deficits, wanting to be lean. So they have a bunch of failed diets because they do extremes, and then they don't know how to get out of it. And I think somebody who's been there, done that, and can explain how you kind of worked out of it, and then apply what you know in your experience to them, and then make it work for their scenario. I think that's a really, really cool. And, you know, something I definitely wanted to showcase. And I mean, I definitely we'll get when we put this video up, we'll throw up a photo of you as well, a current photo, just to show, you know, what you do look like on a daily basis now, living a very balanced lifestyle, having a healthy, sustainable maintenance intake, training healthily, and ultimately just living, you know, a great life for somebody who actually wants to be physically active and have a fitness lifestyle. You know, if you're somebody who wants to be mostly sedentary and look like you, it's probably not going to happen for them unless they have some crazy genetics. But somebody who does want like a healthy, active, fit lifestyle and to have that good balance, you know, I think you're like a poster child for that. So
yeah.
You know, and like I said, in the past, you know, year and a half, you've like leaps and bounds types of progress, not in like your physique has stayed great. It's like, I would say it got better, but I'd say when I say leaps and bounds and improvements with your habits and your overall lifestyle is just way improved. And, you know, seeing your state of mind, your perspective of the whole thing.
Mind and physique has improved largely. So, I mean, that's just kind of what I want to emphasize and, you know, be heard about, is that you can do it with a busy schedule. You need to do the things that you enjoy and make it realistic. You need to have that positive self-image of yourself and stop the comparing, stop the Instagram, stop. You need to find what works for you. And then it's all going to kind of click and you're going to feel better about yourself from then on out. Once you find your personalized method that's realistic. It may take some time, as it did for me, but everyone has their own. And, you know, I emphasize, like we spoke about, no cookie cutter, all about the personalized and what works for you. And finding the whys. I know during your mentorship, you know, if someone's saying they're not sleeping well, don't just like brush it off and be like, okay, well, that sucks for them. Next person. It's like you want to get into the why of why they're thinking this way, why they're acting this way, why they're doing these habits. It's like all like clinical thinking and on our end of things to properly evaluate what's best for them.
Exactly. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen.
That's what I got.
So Caitlyn will actually in Miami accepting clients in person now for in-person training. So what are you're mostly doing? You'll be taking online, you know, virtual clients, how I do. But at the moment, you're also doing a lot of in-person stuff and starting to build that. Yeah, I know you enjoy working with people in person and, you know, showing them your energy and having fun. So if you're in Miami, and you need a great
Come on.
trainer with a lot of energy, contact Caitlyn. And then as she continues to grow and pick up some more experience in the nutrition aspect and starting to build that more, then she'll be taking more and more people virtually.
Yes, correct. Doing both the online and in person. Interested in anyone that wants to come my way. I was trained by the best, so I mean, I can't.
So, awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for jumping on here, and
Yeah. Good
you have
talk.
a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon.
I'll talk to you soon, Coach. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.